Blessed love, beautiful people. I'm here to have a porch side chat with you about the full moon in Virgo coming up in 2 days on March 18th. It's an interesting time. A lot of portal shifts, a lot of energies have transitioned in the last couple of weeks, and it feels like we're kind of settling into these new energies. So, basic reminders: the full moon is a time of illumination. It's also a time of release. I like to think of it as the time when the egg is released from the ovary, as well as the completion of like a pregnancy, right? It's a time of completing something, of a cycle coming to a conclusion. And what I particularly feel for this full moon is that the cycle that's asking to come to a conclusion really has to do with the old paradigm of the age of Pisces, right? So when we're dealing with Pisces energy, and again, Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Neptune rules the 12th house in astrology, as well as the sign of Pisces. Whenever we're dealing with Pisces, we're dealing with the old expression of the Christ consciousness, right? We're dealing with the way that the Christ consciousness was expressed under the very austere, fear-based paradigm of the patriarchy. Okay, we're not talking about the high-frequency version of the Christ consciousness. We're talking about a lot of old programs that are coming to the surface to be transmuted, and particularly the way that being in service was equated with suffering, and that somehow suffering was glorified, right? So even when you think about, people in different religious traditions who gave up, very basic joys of being a human, right? And that was very glorified. And the ways that those sacrifices ended up becoming very distorted expressions that were normalized, like in the Catholic Church, right? With priests and abuse and things like that. And so, as many of you know, I've recently started a community. It's a free community, and it's called the Spiritual Self-Care Tribe for highly sensitive, empathic, and starseed beings. And a lot of the conversations that we're having in that community have to do with how we're moving through old ways of taking on suffering, which has a lot to do with taking on energies, karma, pain, trauma that don't belong to us, whether that's in the collective unconscious, whether that's of our parents, of our family members, ancestral trauma, clients, as healers. And so there is just a very deep opportunity with this full moon to purify our temples, purify our energy bodies, which is really what Virgo is all about, right? So if we take the Virgo archetype, and one of the things that I specialize in is what I call the ancient archetypes of the soul, right? So that's a deep passion of mine, something I've been studying for a very long time across many different cultures and traditions, whether it's the ancient Egyptian, Kemetic, Yoruba, Greek, different indigenous traditions, paradigms. There are incredible similarities and consistencies across cultures, and they have a lot to teach us about aspects of ourselves. So if we take the Virgo archetype, right, the very religious, fear-based teaching of the Virgo archetype is the Virgin Mary, right? And it has become this very distorted, warped expression of this idea that purity has to do with lack of sexual conduct or contact, right? That's not at all what the Virgo archetype is about. It's not what the Virgin is all about, right? It's about being a pure vessel. And before sacred sexuality was defiled and degraded to what it is today, what we as humans knew and understood on a very deep level is that sexual energy is sacred energy. Sexual energy is the energy of the divine. So sexual connection, sexual contact has absolutely nothing to do with your vessel being impure, right? The vessel being impure has to do with many other things not related to sexual contact. Now, of course, if we engage in sexual contact and sexual connection from a place of just our base desires or to manipulate or to gain something for personal power, then yes, of course, that is going to lower our frequency and it is going to affect the purity of our vessel, right? And so, let's talk about some of the things that we can do for this full moon and leading up to this full moon to purify our vessel, and reminding ourselves that the full moon portal is not just the day of the full moon, not by any means. It really is the days leading up to the full moon and then 2 weeks after the full moon. So I made a video about this on YouTube, just starting the basic conversation around this. But, spiritually, a huge part of purifying our vessel has to do with having clear boundaries. And that's the main topic of the conversation in our free online community, has to do with learning how to have strong, clear, energetic boundaries, right? And not unconsciously or consciously taking on other people's karma, trauma, pain, drama, whatever you want to call it, right? So energetic boundaries is one of the strongest ones. And one of the ways that we can clear the energy body and to purify our energy body is to learn how to clear our field. Me personally, this is just me, I personally work with the archangels, Archangel Michael, Archangel Metatron, to clear my field, to remove attachments, entities, energies, consciously or unconsciously placed in my field, intentionally or unintentionally taken on. And if you want to learn how to do that, that's something that we do in our weekly self-care group, which is an online donation-based circle that happens every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do a clearing every week live in that group. So that's an example of your spiritual energy body, right? Then let's go into the mental body. So things in the mental body that we can do to purify our vessel, right? For this Virgo full moon, which is about releasing the old paradigm, is really getting clear on what mental constructs you are still carrying in your mind and your mental body. And every chakra has a mental body. It's not just your brain, right? So what mental constructs, what narratives, what mental patterns are looping for you that are lowering your frequency, that are causing you to feel bad about yourself, that are causing you to feel disempowered, that are not encouraging you to be proactive and take good care of yourself, right? Those are coming out of the old paradigm. They're coming out of literally programs that were intentionally installed in humanity to keep us in a place of disempowerment. And a lot of these are shame-based, guilt-based. You're not worthy. If you are a sexual being, you're dirty, or there's something wrong with you, or there's so many. The list just goes on, right? This is for you to do to figure out what mental narratives are not in your highest and best interest, and to release them with this full moon. Okay, now let's talk about the emotional body. And again, I get more into this in the video I made on YouTube a few weeks ago. The emotional body. Again, a lot of this is energies like depression, anxiety. A lot of these are often ancestral. Things that you think are part of you and you think there's something wrong with you. They have nothing to do with you, right? And that's a big part of what we're going to be dealing with in the retreats that we're doing here in the Dominican Republic in mid-April and in mid-May under the full moon. We'll be doing plant ceremonies. We'll be building ancestral altars to lay down ancestral trauma that is not ours to carry. And one of the things as empathic, highly sensitive ancient souls that we have to learn, and that I credit the shamanic tradition for teaching me, and my shamanic teacher, Mario Kalani, is that, yes, we came to heal these energies, right, from the ancestral lineages that also coincide with the trauma of our soul. And in order to reconnect with them, and this is my personal perspective based on my work as an astrologist, as a soul purpose astrologist, but I personally believe that in order to heal these traumas, right, we recreate them. In order to heal these ancestral traumas that coincide with our soul-based traumas, we, on a soul level, we choose to come to this earth and we design our experience and our journey to recreate them, to experience them, so that we have something tangible to work with on the physical level of the human experience in order to heal them. But we get to a certain level where we cannot actually heal them by carrying them. And that's what the whole purpose of ancestral altars is that we lay them on the altar, we physically express them and shed them and release them from the physical body, and we put them on the altar and we ask spiritual forces to help to clear them and transmute them. And we no longer agree to carry them. Okay? Physically, there's a lot of things we can do physically to purify the energy body. Again, I go over this in the YouTube video. Some examples are giving up very dense foods. Now, I'm not here to tell you which foods are good for you, which foods are bad for you. I believe that's very personal, but some examples of things that could be causing denser vibrations, congestion, mucus, acidity in your body would be meat, particularly red meat, dairy, processed foods, things of that nature. I know for me, as I've gone through this period of purifying my vessel, I basically eat like salad and coconut water. My body is very picky about what I can consume and what I can't consume, and I find it just works out better for me to listen. What else? Coffee. Coffee is very acidic. Some people can handle it. I personally cannot. Alcohol. Alcohol is not only very acidic and has a lot of sugar in it, but it also is very destabilizing emotionally, mentally, and spiritually for most people. Again, some people can handle it. Do your thing if you can. What else? Those are just some examples that I'm giving you. So again, I'm encouraging you to, and I'll try to post some questions and some inquiries for you to work with in the next 24 or 48 hours for this full moon. But I want to encourage you to really look at what is your relationship to suffering? What is your relationship to being in service? How do you show up to be in service? Is it in a way that serves you, or is it in a way that depletes you and sabotages you? What is your relationship to sacrifice and self-sacrifice? Do you sabotage yourself, and why? A lot of times, as healers, we've gotten so accustomed to being in service in ways that don't serve us that sometimes just when things are about to really step up for us, we'll sabotage ourselves, right? Because the idea of us really thriving as healers, being in a place of abundance as healers and light workers, it's so new for us, it's so uncomfortable for us that we'll literally sabotage it. So there's a lot of release work that I think is possible with this full moon in Virgo. There's a very beautiful supportive relationship with this full moon to Pluto. The full moon in Virgo is at like 27, 28 degrees of Virgo, and Pluto is at 28, 29 degrees of Capricorn. So that's like a beautiful harmonious relationship. So there's a lot of support here in a harmonious way for transformation, for healing, okay? And then also that full moon and that Pluto is also in a beautiful relationship with the North Node in Taurus. So we've got a beautiful Earth trine going on for this full moon. There is a square with this full moon between Venus and Uranus. So, just kind of be aware, look out for impulsive energies, particularly around relationships, cutting people off unexpectedly. Again, we want to tame our impulses. We want to tame our tendency to react to our impulses unconsciously, and we want to stabilize the energies. So, quick reminder about our spiritual self-care community. You can join for free. Quick reminder about our spiritual self-care group, Mondays, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Reminder that we have a retreat in April. You only have to make a $500 deposit to secure your space. You can go over the retreat schedule on the website, which is the link for that is in my bio. We also have a retreat in May. And I think that's it. One thing I did want to mention to you for the two retreats is that the focus of the retreat is really birthing the healer within, activating the inner healer by laying down our burdens, right? As I talked about, laying down ancestral trauma that is related to soul-based trauma, really purifying the vessel so that we can be in service to our spiritual purpose, to our higher calling, that we can really tap into, develop our spiritual gifts. And when we do that and when we allow those gifts to come through and when we honor them, that's when we start to move into flow. I personally can attest to that. I resisted my gifts for many, many years. And I can give my testimony that stepping into my spiritual gifts and my spiritual calling is the most powerful thing I've ever done. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade my journey. Part of what makes me so good at being a spiritual midwife is that I can relate to the process. And a lot of us as light workers and healers, you know, we have a lot of past life trauma that we are being asked to release right now as we step into the next level of our gifts. And that's what the retreat is about. That's what the Journey of a Healer is about. We are currently in week 3 of our program, our 16-week program. We are now enrolling for the next program, which will begin in the fall, the last week of August. And you can sign up for your discovery session in the link in my bio. So wishing you all many blessings for this full moon. I may do a short group meditation for the full moon. We'll see. We'll keep you posted on my stories. Blessed love, many blessings, lots of love. Ashe.